All right, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you back to the very busy Steve Malzberg show on this Wednesday edition. And I am very proud to welcome in our next guest who is in studio with us. He's the Deputy Speaker of the Knesset of the State of Israel. He's running for Prime Minister of the State of Israel, Moshe Feiglin. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Great to have you up here. Really appreciate you coming up. Boy, do I have a lot to talk about with you. I mean, there's no greater passion that I have inside of myself than what's going on in the Middle East, and especially with Israel, and how where we've come to under this administration after almost 6 years. But let's start with, if we can, where we are right now. There were reports in an Israeli newspaper that one of Israel's top journalists had been talked to off the record by State Department officials, administration officials here from the U.S., and basically was told that whether Israel likes it or not, they're going to have a two-state solution. Whether Israel likes it or not, they're going to divide up Jerusalem. Whether Israel likes it or not, blah, 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 blah. And that Israel is blamed by the administration for being the impediment to the talks, responsible for the breakup of the talks, basically because of apartment units that were built. Where are we right now as far, I mean, the talks have broken off. Where do you see the future of those talks and the future of any talks with the Palestinians?
Any kind of talks with the Arabs in the land of Israel, I do not call them Palestinians because there is no Palestinian nation. We should start saying the truth. Where were they? Can you talk about the Palestinian history in the 19th century, for example? Can you give a name of a Palestinian poet from the 18th century, or show me a Palestinian coin or anything like that? It's a one big lie. This false nation was created just for one reason, to destroy Israel. The minute, God forbid, Israel disappear, there'll be no Palestinians anymore. We should remember that the PLO, the organization that was supposed to liberate the land of Israel from all the Jews in Tel Aviv and Haifa and Netanya and Jerusalem and so on, that organization was created in 1964, when all these territories that now we're being pushed to give to
belong
those
to Jordan and Egypt and Syria, right?
So as long as these territories belong to any other Arab nation, they don't care.
No problem.
They only care about the last square inch that the Jews are holding in the land of Israel, because this is the whole story. It's not about them having a state. It's about us don't.
I've always said, and I've gotten a lot of flack for it in various circles, but I've always said, wait a minute, give back the land to the Palestinians. And as you correctly point out, and as I alluded to, it was won in a war, in wars from Jordan and from Egypt. You know,
right.
So and they don't want it back. Jordan doesn't want anything to do with the West Bank. And Gaza, Egypt doesn't want Gaza back. So when they say give it back to the Palestinians, I always ask, well, when did they actually have it?
What kind of occupation they're talking about? I don't remember having a war against Palestinians ever. There was a war against the Egyptians, the Jordanians, the Syrian. There was no war against Palestinians. So if you're calling yourself a nation, and you want to be liberated from who? From who?
But now that is the backdrop, and as where we are, how history is. Nonetheless, the world, even Israel, through its prime ministers, has always talked peace, has talked with the Palestinians about giving land back, making an agreement which involves dividing up the land, etc. Even Netanyahu now. The talks recently broke off, depending on who you ask, but Israel withdrew because of the forming of a unified government with Hamas and the PLO, or the Palestinian Authority. But so I ask you, where to go from here, do you think, in the immediate, in the real political world, not what you consider to be the rightful place, but in the real live political world as it exists, what's going to happen next?
We have to face reality. We have to tell the truth, first of all, to ourselves, in Israel, between the Jews and themselves, between the Israelis and themselves. And the truth is that the whole Oslo process was one big mistake. I said it all the time, including during these last talks, that these talks are tremendous mistake. Look what we got from it in the last 9-10 months. All we got from these talks is a few hundred murderers walking around our streets free now. That's all we got from that, which means there'll be more bloodshed, more war. This whole peace
Well, you're
process.
talking about Netanyahu releasing,
Right.
I think, 3 stages of Palestinian murderers, with many of whom directly murdered women and children inside Israel.
Yes, look, I appreciate Netanyahu very much as the Prime Minister of Israel, but I think when Netanyahu talks about two-state solution, he's making a tremendous mistake. And I'm planning to run on the Likud primaries specifically because of that fact.
Okay,
it's about time that it will be very clear to the Arabs and to the entire world that the land of Israel belongs only to the Jews. It was given to us by God. There's no nation that belongs to that land, that belongs to its own land more than the Jews belong to the Holy Land.
And when you say you're in the Likud party, obviously to the right politically of Benjamin Netanyahu, you've run before in the primaries against him. You've done better each time you've run. What would as Prime Minister, what would you, I mean, that's what you would believe, that's what you would say, but what would that mean on the ground? What would that mean, in the world in which we live?
It means, in very simple words, the full Israeli sovereignty in every grain of the land of Israel, where we're holding, where the IDF led, where God gave what God gave us in the 1967 war, miraculously against all odds in 1984. All the times, in all the wars, the Arabs were willing to wipe us out, finish what Hitler, unfortunately almost started and stopped just 3 years before 1948. They said it openly. That's what they wanted to do. Once we finish the job, one will leave no hope for the Arabs to take over the land step by step. Then peace can begin.
And peace is an acceptance of Israel's existence,
right.
As
It's
a Jewish state.
only for our decision, not for them.
Okay, we're talking to Moshe Feiglin. He is the Deputy Speaker of the Knesset of the State of Israel, running for Prime Minister of the State of Israel. We have, thankfully, another segment, and when we come back, we'll ask the Deputy Speaker about American policy, statements made by John Kerry, statements made by Mahmoud Abbas, and others on the Steve Malzberg Show. Don't go away. All right, folks, welcome back. Part 2 of our interview with Moshe Feiglin, who is the Deputy Speaker of the Israeli Knesset, running for Prime Minister. And before we get to this administration, just specifically, if you can, as Prime Minister or running for Prime Minister, your peace plan, quote unquote, what would the specifics of it be?
Totally different than what failed for the last 20 years. Annex the land, flourishing the land with a lot of Jewish villages, encouraging the Jews to come from all over the world, make aliyah, to immigrate into the land of Israel. There is 1.7 Arabs living in Judea and Samaria today. It's about 350,000 families. That's it. Israel spend almost 11% of its income every year on this false bloodshed Oslo agreement, which
living up to those terms.
That's right. This money should be transferred to help those Arabs who say they want to live anywhere else, help them find their future somewhere else, and those who wishes to leave can stay as a permanent residence, have their full human rights. Those who understand that the land of Israel belongs only to the Jews, only to the Jews, having only Jewish sovereignty, are welcome to stay. This is the real peace plan that can work. Nothing else.
Well, Mr. Deputy Speaker, when John Kerry talks about how Israel, if they don't accept a two-state solution now or very soon, they couldn't help but become an apartheid state. Caroline Glick, who I'm sure you're familiar with, said that he's saying that inherently Jews are evil, because if you can't help but become an apartheid state and all that it implies and all that it actually is, then you have to be inherently evil, don't you?
Look,
what did you think when he said that?
First of all, my first reaction was, according to these ideas, America the United States of America is an apartheid state because there are many millions of Americans that having Barack Obama as the president but cannot vote for him, like in Puerto Rico, in other places. All over the world, there are democracies that not everybody can vote, even though everybody have their full human rights, like in Hong Kong, Czechoslovakia, Latvia, even England have territories in Cyprus where they took over in World War II,
no voting rights.
and there are no voting
But
rights.
he was sending a message with that word.
Of course, I understand it. I want to tell you one thing. Forget about John Kerry. These politicians comes and go. That's not the story. You know that Israel is the only state in history that sent its troop to Africa to bring Africans back to that country.
Ethiopia, correct?
From Ethiopia, to be its civilians and not slaves. I think Israel is the last country on earth to be blamed of being an apartheid state.
Would you agree that the proposed Palestinian state and most Arab countries, when it comes to Jews, are apartheid states?
Well, of course. The Jews left during the 50s. They left Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Jordan, and came to Israel only with their clothes on their body, with nothing more. Today, if an Arab in Jordan, in the Kingdom of Jordan, sells his house to a Jew, there's a death penalty in the Jordanian law. Not talk about Arabs in Judea and Samaria that sell to Jews. So of course there is a double standard over here.
And of course,
we should not be worried about that.
Stories, the heroic stories of the Syrians who were victimized by their own government or caught up in that civil war, coming to Israel, over the border to Israeli hospitals, children, Syrian children being saved. The other way around, I couldn't even picture that happening. I can't tell you what a pleasure. I wish I had another hour to talk to you. I would like to talk to you again, and good luck. And we don't know when the elections are because it's not like here where it's every 4 years on a specific date. It's a different system over in Israel. But I wish you well, and thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for coming in. Really appreciate it.